trabajas con equipo. So if you see somebody that needs equipment, is the group outside with tables with interpreting equipment. So if you see somebody that might need equipment, you can tell them to go out. So I'm gonna try to, if people have questions, I don't know. So we're gonna have some dynamics going on. So I'm gonna explain to you guys. So if you see somebody, if you're gonna make a question and somebody's doing this sign, can everybody do that sign? Okay, so that means slow down, because you're going too fast and it's very hard for the interpreters. So if somebody does this, can you do it with me? Speak up, because I can't hear you. So the interpreters are all the way in the back in the room, but if they can't hear you, they would tell me, and I will be like, kind of being in the front, like, speak up, because we can't hear you. So that goes for questions from the public and for the people that are gonna be in the panel. If you have any questions, you can ask me about language justice, okay?
Good evening. Is this on? Hello. Oh, there we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Cordero. I am the Executive Director of Center for Story-Based Strategy, and I feel really humbled and blessed. Woo! I feel humble and blessed to be with y'all and to kind of be one of your guides for the evening plenaries that will be taking place every evening this weekend. So again, hello and welcome. I know we are coming into this space with a lot, right? A lot of beauty, a lot of hope, but also a lot of pain and a lot of suffering right now. And this is exactly why we need to be here. And so we are in this space this weekend to really practice and build the world that we so desperately need right now. And I want to just acknowledge the gift you are giving of your presence to yourself and to each other to be here together this weekend, even as the world will go on around us, and we know we are a part of that and connected to that. So welcome into this space and into CommonBound. Over the next couple of days, one of the things that's really beautiful about CommonBound is we are actually practicing a deeply democratic translocal organizing model. So what does that mean? It means that every morning and every evening we are practicing what we hope to do at larger and larger scales out in this world, right? So starting today, you actually had folks who autonomously, with a lot of support, really brought together these network gatherings that they organized themselves to talk about deeply issues that they need to talk about. So every day, we're going to disperse into these workshops and tracks, take care of place-based specific things that are happening out in the new economy, really talking about ecosystem-wide solutions and things that, how do we get to deeply democratic ways of being together. And then in the evening, what we're going to do are kind of try to bring those threads together and into these sessions to say, what can we learn from each other? What are the ways in which we lift each other up in different ways? And so tonight is really about CommonBound. How are we commonly bound? How are we commonly bound in the values that we know that we need to shift in order to get the new economy we want? So tonight's evening plenary is about grounding in the space, bringing us together, and really talking about this new economy moving forward. On day 2, you're gonna go out into the workshops and do the tours to really root in the actual reality and examples in place. There's gonna be the Buffalo tours, there's gonna be themes of what does this look like at scale to really ground us in the work that's happening. And then at the end of the day, we're really talking about how do we root in those real examples, but also stretch our imaginations into what we're trying to do. And then day 3, an amazing closing panel, all of these plenaries are gonna be amazing, are gonna ground us in making real life impact and implementation moving into the future. And so each night we're really gonna take all these beautiful hundreds threads, right? And then try to weave them together and see what we can lift up every evening. And that's kind of what we have to look forward to. Are y'all down with that? Yeah? Yeah. But in order to make sure that we all have equitable access to this weekend, I actually wanna bring Danya and anybody else back up to do the full language justice orientation. So can our family come back up? Let's give her a round. We're doing like Price is Right. Woo! Come on down. Another quick announcement while she makes her way up here. There are also headsets for those of us that need more support with hearing the plenaries.
So hello again. So we're gonna do the exercise again for the people that weren't here. So can everybody scream what this means? And this? And this? It was a trick, sorry. It's an internal joke. So los que hablan español, ¿entendieron las señas? Despacio. So if you, despacio. Alto. ¿Y este? Dejen de hablar. Stop talking. So, the girls that have the time here know what this means. So the reasons we do in language justice, we think we cannot have a new economy if we don't have justice on all levels. And unfortunately, we have one language dominating the conversation most of the time. And the language is the language of business as usual. So maybe we want to change a little bit that and challenge ourselves and learn a different language or use a different language. But some people don't even have access to language justice. So that's one of the steps that we're doing to move that way. So folks, if you hear somebody like whispering, it might be somebody that is interpreting for somebody in a different language that is not English or Spanish, or somebody that wants to understand a little bit more what's going on. So rule number 1, please do not use acronyms, because it means very different for different people. So if you're gonna use one, please break it down for all of us that don't get it, right? So if you have a lot of acronyms in your organization, please just break them down. Second, don't make assumptions, right? Just ask questions. Like if you don't know what's going on, just ask. And third one, have fun, because language is fun. Maybe English is not that fun. Sorry, I'm joking. We can make it fun. See, everybody laughed. So please enjoy yourselves and have a good conference.
Thank you, Danya. Again, give it up for accessibility and language justice in the space. I learned a long time ago from my friends Diana Haywood and Chrystel the language around, instead of first and second language, there are those of us who have heart and home languages, and we have learning languages, right? And so how then, even as we're saying first and second, we're putting a value on what language should be in the space. So how do we make room for our heart languages, our home languages, and our learning languages for all of us? So being mindful of that throughout the weekend. So where are we? New economy is very rooted in place. What does it mean that the old economy we're trying to move from, part of the way it wins is separating us from our connection to the land, to each other, and to ourselves. And so one of the things we want to do in this opening is really talk about where we are and how do we talk about this land and where we are. So I wanted to just briefly talk about a little bit of what we've learned, and thank you to Sister Chrystel for helping us think about the First Peoples who are in this land. Oh, thank you. Ooh. Everybody just did this slow. Y'all make me excited, and I get a little nervous and fast. So, First Peoples first. So this land has been resource-rich with the lakes and the waterways, and with flint and minerals in the ground, and a lot of the animals that are in the ecosystem with us, like beavers, were all resources in this land that folks utilized in different ways. There was an Iroquois-speaking federation, who the French colonizers called the Neutral Tribe, that were made up of a number of different tribes, like the Chanantan and the Ongihara. And unfortunately, the majority of the population was decimated in the wars and by disease. And most tribes who wanted to actually stay on their ancestral lands didn't want to buy into the whole federal recognized tribe system in order to actually stay on their ancestral lands. And so a lot of them did not get it federally recognized. And most tribes who did got moved west past the Mississippi. But to recognize that there were folks here. And I think an interesting connect is one of the things that Sister Chrystel brought up is that the Seneca Nation actually is one of the only sovereign nations, truly sovereign nations, that doesn't take a dime from anybody external to their tribe, and that is because they have made themselves resilient in their economy in order to do that. And so it's a nice point of inspiration for what we are trying to build to get connected to control of our resources and our labor and our land, right? And so just to ground us here. So that's just a little bit about the first peoples on the place. I now want to transition us to folks from Buffalo who are going to ground us in the work here. So I'd like to invite up Lorna Hill. We are about to be blessed with some performance and art. Lorna is the founder of the Ujamaa Theater Company here in Buffalo and is a longtime performer, writer, and director. She's going to be up here with other artists, so let's give it up for them to ground us in the space.
This is Zoe Viola Scruggs.
Hello.
And on the drums we have Frank Desiree. I would like for you to know before I start that I wrote this from the perspective of an African American, also known as Black artist, okay? Not trying to leave anyone out. You know, Toni Cade Bambara said of herself that as an artist, her job is to make the revolution irresistible. I find that profound. We know what ails the planet, what enslaves the people, what makes the cost of poverty so high, what produces so much hate, hate, hate. But knowing must become doing. And before we do, I have to ask, is it necessary to make certain that no one feels guilty, but everyone feels responsible? Is that even possible? Desirable? Maybe we should talk about how we got here, review the history. Can we have an honest accounting? Maybe the victims of history would like closure. Can we try? Or should we, as with slavery, just get over it?
I want to be free from all these politicians. I want to be free from all these politicians. I want to be free from all these corrupt monsters. I want to be free. You just have to admit it.
And if we do, how do we promote the possibility of justice to a suspicious and wounded population? Generations traumatized by neglect and marginalization. Are we hoping they'll just rise up and seize the means of a just transition? And if we are, what does that mean? What does race, wealth, earth mean to each of us? Who is our audience? Do we know how to inspire their confidence in themselves, in us? Are we giving a credible performance? Should we lead until they lead? Do we need a succession plan? Can we talk about what happens if we fail? Is that in the plan? And if it is, at what point in the party do we stop the music and tell folks what time it is?
Every day and every night, I ask myself, why? Is it because the light of day try to confuse I? And that is why I want to be free.
Can we engage the youngest among us without perpetuating the oppressive systems of pimping children, of show and tell, while we get paid for paying no attention and they are left without anything in hand except how to count our money, but not how to love, live, or be free? Does the birth of the new economy hail the death of the culture vulture? Will it be safe to make black art, to speak black minds? Will artists be recognized as prophets? Or will it be the same old dog and pony show? Should we, as with slavery, just get over it? Can we establish new cultural cornerstones? Can they look like us this time? Can we reevaluate meritocracy and take the racism out? Will they believe us if we say yes? If we have answers to any of these questions, can we share them? Is it all right if the answers are flawed, as long as they're honest and well considered? Can we step out on faith? Can we take risks with each other? I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Every day and every night, I ask myself, why? Is it because the light of day try to confuse I? And that is why I want to be free from all these politicians. I want to be free from all these politicians. I want to be free from all these corrupt monsters. I want to be free. You just have to admit it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we give it up one more time? One more time. Ooh, thank you, Buffalo. All right, so next up we have two raised locals here, Aaron Bartley, the executive director and co-founder of Push Buffalo, and Franchelle Hart, who was raised in Niagara and is the ED of Open Buffalo. Welcome, please, Aaron and Franchelle.
CommonBound 2016. Let me hear you make some noise. We are so excited to have you in our city. I'm Franchelle Hart. I'm the executive director for Open Buffalo.
And I'm Aaron Bartley, the executive director of Push Buffalo. And we're here tonight as your official welcomers to our city. We're eager to show off our city and the work we put in to create new models of developing our neighborhoods with community control as a core value, promoting walkable, livable communities on all sides of our city, seeding new consumer and worker cooperatives, and initiating community-based solar and geothermal projects that are helping to create a new architecture of energy in our city.
That's a whole lot. And we're eager to enlist you as allies in our struggles against racism and poverty that's plagued our city and this country for far too long. From the bottom of our hearts here in Buffalo, we want to thank you and the staff and the leadership of NEC for stopping this conference and walking in solidarity with us in MLK Park today for the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of us this evening come to this space very troubled, very burdened, very frustrated, very angry. So for us to recognize the space that we're in and say, wait a minute, we need to be out in the streets, I thank you for that, because a whole lot of planning goes into conferences like this. But Buffalo is a city of resilience and resistance. From combating the school to prison pipeline, to the growing Black Lives Matter movement here in the city of Buffalo. Buffalo isn't just snow, chicken wings, and a losing football team. We are a resilient, organized, and empowered community ready to restore our land, our economy, and our communities back to the hands of the people. As you get out and check out our city, I'm sure that you'll see a blossoming downtown Buffalo, and it's exciting. And I think everyone in the room here in Buffalo is excited to have this new downtown, but there's a lot of people in the city that's not prospering from the development that's happening here in our city. There are still folks in this city that are struggling to decide, do I pay my cell phone bill this month? Or can I get some extra groceries this month? Things sometimes that we don't think about in our day-to-day. But people here in Buffalo, we think about it all the time. You might see Buffalo on HGTV, that we're one of the, I think we're one of the coolest or one of the hottest, I'm not sure which word that we're using now, cities to move to in the entire country. That's an advancement for Buffalo, and that needs to be celebrated. But that also means that there needs to be some serious work done in this city to make sure that everyone is able to participate in the growth that's happening. Everyone is able to prosper. So while you'll hear a whole lot about Buffalo and what we're doing and the wonderful work that our allies like Push Buffalo are doing in the city to actually reclaim this new economy, we want to hear your stories too. We want to hear about the struggles and the lessons learned and the best practices and the community land trust and all the wonderful work that you all are doing as well.
And as much as the next few days are all about sharing those stories from our work on the front lines with each other, it's also about Buffalo in the summertime. And you may know that we don't have a long summertime, so we have to pack in a lot of energy and dancing and fun into what we've got. And we want to help you find your way. And that's what we're going to do now.
And since you're such a special group of folks, warriors for justice and equity and all that good stuff, doers and dreamers, and all of us gathered here in this space, we want to give you some inside information on how to maneuver our community while you're here.
So here goes with the number 10 things that all CommonBounders need to know as insider information in Buffalo. Number 10 is today is Friday, which means one basic thing in Buffalo, it's Fish Fry Day. There are about 300 taverns, old-time places serving huge pieces of fried haddock, mayonnaise-laden coleslaw, deep-fried French fries, and none of this, obviously, is sourced locally in the least. But the places that they're served in are as local as it gets. You can ask 5 Buffalonians to name their 5 favorite fish fry places, and you'll get 5 different answers.
Number 9. Yes, buffalo wings were created in Buffalo. Yes, our buffalo wings are the best in the country. And no, buffalo wings were created on the east side of Buffalo by a black man named John Young.
And so, well, that debate will rage. Number 8 is really about what you can do, where you can have that debate all the way up until 4 a.m. in Buffalo, because it is a fact that Buffalo is one of the last all-night cities in the country. Party starts at midnight. The bars close at 4, maybe. And if you want to see the maybe part, you can check out a bar called the Old Pink on Allen Street, which somehow seems to have its own closing hours.
And while we have a whole lot to be proud of here in Buffalo, some things, not so much. So there's several U.S. presidents that are buried here whose reputations range from bad to worse. And it doesn't get any worse than Miller Fillmore. But our two greatest graves, which we'll put up against Paris and Jimmy Morrison any day, are two of our 70s icons, the King of Funk, Rick James. He's a super freak. And the freedom fighter, Shirley Chisholm. The first female to run a credible campaign for president of the United States. So head to Forest Lawn on Delaware Avenue to check them out.
So number 6 is something you just experienced out on the quad. Buffalo is the Miami of the North.
Woo!
It's true for 3 months a year. We've got loads of sun. We've got beaches on both sides of the border. We've got a steady breeze. And this being a port city, there's a rich history on any port of deviance and bohemian living. In this case, on our old docks downtown where the Erie Canal converges with Lake Erie. And in fact, the term dive bar originated downtown in Buffalo with Doug's Dive, an African-American owned tavern that was literally underground. That port and everything around the river is still where the cool kids hang out in the shadow of our great grain elevators.
Number 5, the last stop on the Underground Railroad. Buffalo's foundation is built on foundation and a fight for justice. Check out the Michigan Street Corridor and visit Michigan Street Baptist Church that housed slaves en route to Canada in hopes of freedom. That also laid the groundwork for the Niagara movement and founding of the NAACP right here in Western New York.
So number 4, you've probably seen this also. The Buffalo is an architectural museum. Frederick Law Olmsted, the master planner and park designer, called it the best planned city in the world. We have more Frank Lloyd Wright houses than any city outside of Chicago. And the upside of being in a stagnating, non-growing region for the last 50 years, when the rest of the country was sprawling in McMansions, is that we have a collection of Victorian villages that when they're sewn together, and that's the work we're doing to sew them together, are really unrivaled.
Number 3, being a Niagara Falls native, I would be remiss if I didn't say visit Niagara Falls. It's the beauty of the falls. It's the wonder of being the largest source of hydropower in the country, and also the site for one of the worst environmental disasters and travesties in this country, Love Canal.
Number 2, a little known fact that Buffalo has the second highest union density in the country after Las Vegas, which means as you know, much of the rest of the country suffered privatization, which we also suffered. We fought back pretty hard. While our community suffered years of economic decline with our factory closings, they didn't stop organizing hard men and women in this town from claiming what is theirs and organizing new industries and marching with all of our movements.
And number 1.
Yeah.
Buffalo has one of the most unique, dynamic, hardworking, progressive, innovative coalitions called the Crossroads Collective in the entire country. We have Push Buffalo. We have Open Buffalo. We have Ujima Theater, and they were just up here gracing us with their talents and their energy. We have the Massachusetts Avenue Project. We have the Public Accountability Initiative. We have the Partnership for the Public Good. And we have the Coalition for Economic Justice.
Woohoo! So, to close out, we want to remind everybody and all of ourselves why we're all here. We know that our cities, and this city in particular, Buffalo, are at a crossroads. We can either follow the path of gentrification and corporatization, forces that are wreaking havoc in many cities, especially on the coasts, the wealthier cities, or we can dream big, we can take our neighborhoods back, and we can take them in a new direction.
And everyone can join us and help us in this quest. We can build the co-ops we need to feed and clothe the people here. We can set really, really, really big goals for building affordable housing, and we can actually meet them, though. We can create the public spaces that allow youth and elders and everyone in the in-between to build a culture of resistance that says no to the abuse of Black and brown communities and bodies over and over again. No to the school to prison pipeline, no to poverty wages, and no to the energy industry, hell-bent on global destruction. Together, we can form this coalition, and we just ask you to join us in this work. So welcome to Buffalo. We grant you all a key to our city. Enjoy it. Don't just stay on the Buffalo State campus. Get out and really know our community. Thank you.
All right, we got the keys and we are grounded in Buffalo. Do you feel grounded in space? Yeah, in the space? We know where we're at. All right, so let's, now that we're here, let's talk about the threads that are coming together. We're going to do a little shout out, and this is participation. I know we're getting in the evening. So let's give each other some love. If you feel like it, and you are able and feel comfortable, you should stand up and be recognized, and the rest of us can give love. I'm going to call out some regions, a couple of groupings, and to see who's in the room so that we know who we're all bringing into Buffalo for that late night fish fry and maybe some music and stuff out in Buffalo. All right, so here we go. Let's give it up and see who is here from the U.S. South region. Who is here from the South? Yeah. Yes. Yes. All right. Who is here from the West Coast, left coast? All right, Midwest, let me hear where you're from. Midwest. The Rust Belt and Buffalo. East Coasters. East Coasters. All right, outside of the US, here we go. Canada, where are my Canadians? Yes. How about our folks from Germany and Spain? Yeah, give it up for them, our folks traveling from afar. How about Australia? Aussies. Then we have friends from Senegal. All right. Yes, friend from Senegal. Traveling far. How about folks from Malaysia and Japan? And the Asias, thank you. And then we have Cuba, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and El Salvador, the Americas. With us. All right. See where you want to next visit and see amazing work. I hope you kept track of some people in different regions. Okay, who works on food justice? Who are our growers, our planters? Thank you. How about land and housing? Land and housing. Who's making home for folks? Yes. Who are building our cooperatives? Yes, channeling our labor in different ways. Who is reclaiming and reshaping finance for the people? Yeah. And who are our culture makers and our artists? Wanted folks to see the beautiful threads that make up what we're building here together. And I wanted to invite up Jonathan, who is the Executive Director of New Economy Coalition. He is somebody here who is going to talk a little bit about, and it's one thing I've really appreciated and deeply respected of him, is he not only can sit in discomfort and hold it gracefully, he actually invites it and knows that as we are disparate and different and diverse threads which make our ecosystem thrive, also makes for moments of tension. But there are ways that we can be together. And so here, welcome Jonathan.
Bienvenidos, welcome, benvenuto, and welcome in the other languages I don't know who are in the house. It's an honor to be here, and it's a challenge to be here also at this moment, holding the incredible possibility and the reality of what's being birthed by all of us in the room, together with just supporting a staff that's put together an incredibly complex and amazing conference, and then holding it with the pain and suffering and rage and despair that's all around us this week in particular, and the hundreds and thousands of years that's led up to that point. It's a lot to hold in this moment. And yet, here we are, with this incredible weekend that we've started and that we have before us. So I'd like to take a second of quiet and ask each of us to honor, how did we get here? Who walked this land before us? And who do you hold as your mentor, your inspiration, the people that came before you that give you the courage to do the work you're doing? And let us pause for another moment to honor the spirit of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile and the many before them who were killed really before their time. Let us dedicate our work this weekend to their spirit, and let us use it as inspiration to stretch ourselves and to grasp the courage to go a little bit beyond our comfort zone, to meet new people, try on new ideas, and just show up fully as we can. So I think for all of us, it's a hard task to hold the balance between the pain, the rage, the resistance, and celebrating, birthing our movement, our movements, the new work that we're all doing. So that's what we're going to be doing this weekend. To get us off on a little different note, my staff asked me to share just a little bit of my story and how I got to the New Economy Coalition, and part of what's driving my leadership and in my work here in working with them to create this conference and all of the other work that we're doing. So I'll start my story. I won't go on too long. In a strange town in New Jersey where I lived for 4 years, and when I was 10 years old, my family moved to what I call the alien lunar landscape, otherwise known as suburban Maryland. I was in 6th grade, or entering 6th grade, and although you would think going from a small town in New Jersey to Maryland, it's not that far, similar middle class white culture, wouldn't be that hard to move for a 10-year-old. But for me, I couldn't really figure out how to fit in with people that shared my class background and looked like me. And there was a small group of folks who were descendants of slaves who moved to the area soon after emancipation. And those young people welcomed me as a new friend in a way that the people that looked like me and that I shared a lot in common with did not welcome me. And this was the early 1970s. It was a racially charged time. We took for granted things like playing sports black against white. And I played with my black friends, and that was just accepted as part of the landscape. So from those courageous friends of mine, I learned a lot about compassion, acceptance, and really unconditional love. And I also learned for the first time about deep injustice. Our teacher, Mr. Wood, was an overtly racist, very cruel man. And I ran into situations like doing homework with my friends. We would get our papers back. They weren't exactly the same, but I would always get an A, and they would always get a C. And when I went to talk to my parents about what could I do about this, it didn't seem right, they really weren't of much help, and they supported my idea that it wasn't right, but also really gave me the idea there wasn't really anything I could do about it. It was bigger than me. That was not a very satisfying answer. And I really struggled as a teenager to find meaning in the world around me. And I went to college, which I didn't particularly like. I lasted a couple years, but I did take a class there called The Political Economy of Women. And in that class, really the light went on for me. So all these things I had been feeling and experiencing but had no language or context to explain suddenly became very clear to me. So clear that I got so into activism that it kind of propelled me right before I almost got expelled right out of college. So I moved to Boston from where I was going to school in Maine, got involved in political organizing work, and I didn't really like the world of activism at that time. I felt used as a draft resistor. And so I went back to what I knew and was called to do, food co-ops. And yet pretty quickly I found food co-ops were running away from politics and I was running towards it. So I left the food co-ops and with a couple of friends set up a company called Equal Exchange. And that company was based on our ideals, and we were told you can't do social change work and be a business at the same time. So we set out just to see if we could survive, and Equal Exchange now has over 120 worker owners, 65 million in sales a year. And yet pretty soon, we got caught up in this thing called business and just trying to survive and grow. And so the limitations that I ran into in food co-ops, I ran into in Equal Exchange. And so this became a little bit of a pattern for me. And over time, we were really blessed that this thing called fair trade that grew out of work around the world and also the work Equal Exchange was doing had tremendous success, but that success came at a great cost. And the cost was that we got completely integrated into the marketplace. And so while fair trade is almost a household word, the roots of where we started looking at systemic change and transforming the economy from one of extraction and accumulation to one of healing and supporting people and putting Mother Earth back in the center instead of the dollar sign, those ideas became further and further away. And so I struggled for a number of years trying to figure out, well, why was this? And came to realize that part of it was that because we were so integrated into the marketplace, there was no opportunity to really look at power and the systemic way that trade worked for very few people and not for most people. And so I tried as one person to figure out how to address that, and there was a lot of interest in addressing it, but actually no action. And so eventually, after my last consulting gig that I did ended somewhat abruptly. I collected unemployment for the first time in my life and had a period of what I call spiritual incubation, trying to figure out where do we go from here? How do we get back to our roots where fair trade started? And what I became clear on is that for me, that meant coming back to the intersection of the small is beautiful organizations that I had started, co-started, consulted to a lot of folks trying to make them survive, and systemic change. I had understood in fair trade that without a systemic change component, ultimately we get eaten by the system. Whether that's being integrated and eaten or crushed is another way of being eaten, but the system absorbs us and the same inequities continue and in some ways get deeper. So as I got clear I wanted to work at that intersection, I got recruited to apply for this job for something called the New Economy Coalition. It took me a little while to figure out what is the New Economy Coalition. But I decided it was right at that sweet spot, so I would apply for the job. And then I saw a video of a board member, Ed Whitfield, at the last CommonBound. I think Ed's in the house. And I knew I was in the right place. And amazingly, I got offered the job. So I've had an incredible year over the last year, steep learning curve, really digging into the new economy space and building trust and capacity with an incredible staff and group of folks, and being really well supported by also an amazing group of people on the board. So I'm really thrilled to be here. And I think most people here know something about New Economy Coalition, and that's part of how you got here, and hopefully have read some things online. But just to review quickly for people that don't know, New Economy Coalition was founded as a think tank and took a radical pivot and became a coalition. And we are now really morphing into what we consider more of a network. So we have over 150 members. And basically what we do is weave together into a loosely woven cloth the individual fragmented threads of movements, sectors, organization, networks, and other things into this thing called New Economy, which is a bit of a vague term to some, but really we're talking about how do we build a people and planet friendly world. And so we do that in a couple of different ways. One of the key ways, the most public way, is convenings. So CommonBound is one of our convenings. We also do a lot of informal convenings where we bring together different members of ours that are doing similar work or could in some way find advantage by coming together. So we're always looking for where can 1 + 1 = 3. In addition to convenings, we do media work. We have an ongoing social media program. We're building a PR platform as well to enable our members to better tell their story and to get the stories out to a wider and wider audience. And we also have a program of re-granting to give better access to knowledge, information, trainings, conferences to people in marginalized communities, frontline communities, youth and student groups. And that re-granting work is really just the beginning of tackling redistribution. How do we help people get access to resources, knowledge, et cetera, in an easier way where we're in a world where it's getting harder and harder for the majority of people to get access. So those are kind of the three main pieces of what we do. And I think in closing, I'd like to just honor the volunteer coordinators who helped put together this incredible collaborative conference. We couldn't have done it without you. I'd like to give a quick thank you to the New Economy Coalition staff who's worked incredibly hard. I think we are now buying Red Bull wholesale. And also the board for their visionary guidance and support in all manner. Many of them are in the house. Thank you. And so in closing, I'd like to invite you to think about this weekend as a time to step back and ask questions. We can all pause a little bit longer before speaking to reflect on what we've heard, what we're learning, what's challenging us. If you typically are someone that speaks up often and loudly, try stepping back, listening first, maybe waiting with that burning comment. And if you are typically quiet, find a moment or two to stretch and speak up, if you can find the comfort. And lastly, we need each other. These are difficult times and we have important work to do. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to people around you that you love. Be kind to the people around you that you don't know. And be kind in general. So on that note, I'd like to again pass on the welcome from our incredible hosts in Buffalo, who we've loved collaborating with, and say welcome to Buffalo. Have a great weekend.
Alrighty, so I'm going to invite up here a couple of folks to, we often do a lot of good work and it kind of stays in the place where it's at. So in order to ground us in a little bit of the work that was done today, I want to invite up from the Southern Movement Assembly, Nikki Brown and Glory Kilanko. And from the folks who talked about how racism is a roadblock to the next economy and what we can do about that, Amaka Agbo. So folks can come up here. We're going to hear a little bit. Yeah, give them some love. Hear very briefly from them to give us some comments that'll take us into a little bit of what we're doing this weekend.
Greetings, everyone. We bring you love and greetings from the South, and we want to echo from the Southern Movement Assembly, SMA, love and gratitude for the opportunity to be with you all this weekend. So thank you for having us. We were pre-warned that we have just 3 minutes, so we're going to do the best we can to share with you what the Southern Movement Assembly, SMA, means. The Southern Movement Assembly actually is an idea that came together first and foremost from the first U.S. Social Forum that took place here in the United States, which took place in Atlanta, Georgia in 2007. And from that gathering, we started visualizing what it will look like to build a people's movement. And so in 2010, we were able to come together to organize BAM, Building a Movement, to look at what it is, what are the resources we have collectively to be able to challenge all of the isms that stare us in our faces every day. And so we went from that, and to date we have organized 5 social movement assemblies, starting from the first movement assembly in Lloyds County in Alabama, where we had to reenact the 10th city, to the 5th SMA that took place, which we also crowned the Gulf Coast Rising, And so we're looking forward to the 6th SMA, which is going to take place in Chattanooga, October 1st and 2nd. We invite all of you to join us and sort of have an experience about what we do around the Southern Movement Assembly. And to date, I think we are proud to say we have about 40 organizations from the South that make up the Southern Movement Assembly. And we are trying to build a movement that sort of galvanizes from bottom to top. And we have been able to fashion. I was talking to somebody this afternoon and they asked me, oh, you're from the Southern Movement Assembly, what's your mission? And I smiled and said, we are not a 501c3. We do not have a mission, nor a mission statement, but we are guided strongly by principles of unity, 12-point principles of unity that we took time, which was a process of about a year and a half, that was collectively developed. And so we have been bounded by those principles of unity, from which we have set up, for the first time in the history, Governance Council. So we do have a Governance Council that sort of makes decisions in terms of how things affect us and how we function. So I would leave the rest for Nikki to take over, since we have just 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you again for having us. I'm Nikki Brown. I am part of the Southern Movement Assembly. Yes. Basically, today we did have a closed session, but that session was basically to figure out how to mobilize and be strategic about really gaining power in the South, because so goes the South, so goes the nation. So we've been working on 3 Southern People's initiatives. One of them is the May 1st Initiative for New Economies. Another is People's Democracy, which is about building people's power and mobilizing the power that we have. You know, take back the vote, undo a lot of this mess around voting rights. And also, we have Protect and Defend Initiative, which is around state violence, be it medical violence, police violence, climate injustice. We're really trying to change the world. Yeah. So again, we really invite you to join us in organizing and making a difference in the world that we live in. Thank you.
I love you too, Nikki. So my name is Amaka Agbo, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I have the pleasure of working at Movement Strategy Center. Some of my colleagues are in the room. I'd ask you to wave your hands and say hello. I'm the Next Economy Fellow at MSC, the Movement Strategy Center, and our organization really focuses in on how to bring people together in collaboration to explore how to develop our movement building strategies for our collective liberation. And over the past couple of years, we've been in a place of inquiry through a process that we've been referring to as our Transitions Lab. And we've had the pleasure of bringing together groups of people over periods of days to actually explore through different technologies what it looks like to actually move into a space of just transition and what's actually needed to get us to our collective liberation. And so we are fortunate enough to be able to actually bring an offshoot of this to CommonBound. And we engage with a lot of great people today in our session, Racism as a Roadblock to the Next Economy. Can I get a show of hands of people? Some of you poked your heads in. Yay, we'll do silent hands. We were really fortunate enough to see that this was an issue that people wanted to take a deep dive into. We're really clear that in order to actually move into a just transition and find a new economy, we actually can't bring the same systems of oppression that create more harm and pain. And we need to be in active practice of undoing that harm and that pain. I think the incidents over this past week have shown us so many people are deeply wounded and deeply hurting. And I see it as a gift to be able to be with all of you over the next 3 days to hold each other through this space and understand how we come out to the other side of it. So for our session today, we really focused in on the purpose of what it looks like to lift up healing, wholeness, and integration within this movement that we're trying to create. We were fortunate enough to use activities. We did theater of the pressed. We really focused in on storytelling. We did small group discussions to really explore how structural racism and systemic oppression act as a tool for ultimately maintaining capitalism, and which in turn continues to create more harm and more pain. And we're clear that now is the time when we need to figure out how to move forward from that. But in order to be able to unpack that, we need to actually spend time repairing and providing reparations for the pain that has been done. And there's a lot of questions as to what that looks like, and we don't have all the answers. But what we did today allowed us to actually embody, practice, question, and exercise what that looks like. And it's only by actively being in it that we can actually start to figure out these are the strategies that we do want to move forward. And so going forth, we were able to end on a note that I'm really excited about. We're on a path to figure out how we put people of color at the center of our next economy as a way for creating that repair and reparations. And so we're excited to create a community of practice in doing that. Some of people have already stepped up to say that they would like to be a part of that exploration. And if that's something that resonates with you, I would invite you to join us on that journey. Thank you.
I want to invite up Anand Singh, who is the program director of New Economy Coalition. And he's going to ground us a little bit in what kind of both from the Southern Movement Assembly and from some of the work that Amaka just talked about, how this is connected to communities and to our families.
Thanks, Christine. My name's Anand Jahai. I am a black man with an Indian first name, but not an Indian last name. And I'm the program director for the New Economy Coalition. I'm tasked tonight with kind of starting our transition into the beginning of the conference. After me, we're going to do the opening plenary. And in order to do that and communicate why I think new economy work is so important, and also speak to the moment that we find ourselves in, I'm going to share a personal story. So, tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of the day that my cousin, Charles Goodridge, was shot and killed by a police officer. He was black and unarmed. Charles was killed because he was black. But you can't understand his death without understanding the economic devastation that preceded it. In 2009, Charles lost his job at Hewlett-Packard after filing a racial discrimination lawsuit against the company. This was the height of the recession, and he was never able to find consistent work after that. His savings evaporated, and he was forced out of his apartment. On the night that he was killed, however, he was spotted in one of the apartment complex's common areas, either using the gym or using Wi-Fi. To this day, we don't know what was going on. An off-duty police officer acting as a security guard tried to arrest him for trespassing. Charles fled. The officer gave chase, caught him, and shot him twice in the stomach. Charles had once lived in the complex where he was shot, but economic devastation turned him into a trespasser. And it was that status that legitimated the police officer's assault. Many other cases of police violence perpetrated against black people have had economic roots. You can't understand Eric Garner's story without understanding the economic devastation that would force a man to sell loose cigarettes to feed his family. You can't understand Alton Sterling's story without understanding the economic devastation that would force a man to sell CDs outside of a convenience store to make ends meet. It's dangerous to be black, but it's very dangerous to be poor and black. This is why I think the new economy work is so important. I believe that it has the potential to transform the economic foundation of racism, sexism, homophobia, and other forms of oppression that are rampant in our society and that are particularly potent this week and this month. We've designed CommonBound with that in mind. So we have a diverse array of workshops and plenary conversations which tackle topics like racial, migrant, and gender justice, energy democracy, the 21st century labor movement, and many more. My sincere hope is that some seeds of liberation are planted here this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand, for grounding us. And the work that we do here is not about our nonprofits, it's not about organizations, it's not our individual co-op. This is about how all of us get free, because nobody's free until all are free, which I learned from Fannie Lou Hamer. I want to bring up another incredible black woman who has been gracious enough to teach me just by being in spaces with me. Elandria is part of the Highlander Research and Education Center, as well as Beautiful Solutions. And Elandria is going to lead us in this amazing opening plenary, so please give it up for Elandria Williams.
Hello, everybody. My computer. So we're going to do this a little different. If everyone ever knows me, I don't actually like to do things normal. I'll sit in the middle. Great. So I'm Elandria Williams.
Chrystel Cornelius.
Malachi Garza. And so we're going to start, Chrystel, we're going to start first with the opening. And a welcome in the traditional ways in which we like to do so. And at the end, we're going to do libations. And so if you identify as black, I invite you to come forward, knowing that when you pour libations, elders must go first. And so if you would like to pour libations, I offer you to come forward. Anand, I would love for you to come forward too, please. Okay. So this would be the time to move closer now so that it doesn't take an hour to get up here.
While we do this, Elandria has asked me to say a prayer for the convening. And traditionally within Native culture, we always start important convenings with diverse amounts of people, small amounts of people with prayer. Before I say a prayer in my traditional language, I'd like to give just a little bit of history. You can continue. Within my culture, I am from the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa and also the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. We have traditions that we have been following for generations, for thousands of years, which we have been lucky enough to retain. In Northern Plains culture, we have a symbol that's called the medicine wheel, and there are lessons upon lessons within this medicine wheel on how to live a good life, how to live a just life, how to live a life full of kindness, compassion, and giving. One thing that I find very powerful within the teachings of the medicine wheel, it's essentially a circle, and it's got a cross in between it. And there's there's quills from porcupines that we wrap, and we keep this as a constant reminder of prayer. The colors of the medicine wheel are red, white, yellow, and black. If we look at this, and this is one of our main teachings, this encompasses all of humanity. This encompasses the brown people of the nation, which we transfer into red, right, white, not right, white, I did not mean that. Well, at least we can get a joke out of this really quick. As well as black and yellow. What we understand within this medicine wheel, each are equal, and without each other, we don't have a full creation and we don't have a full universe. So while I offer this prayer among our Native culture, we realize that everybody in this room are our brothers and sisters, and there are no separation because we each are an integral part of the universe, each an integral part of this Mother Earth, and without each other, we wouldn't be able to sustain ourselves and to live. So with that, I will offer a short prayer, and then we will continue with the session tonight. Gishimanadu, Nina Nishna Beakwe, Mekanakwaju, Gundunji, Mashkode, Bijaki, Dishnakaj. Gakina, Manadus, Gakina, Danawe, Maganug, Migwich, Minogijigan Nungom, Minogijigan Dibikat. Creator, I ask you today that you look upon us and you look upon this convening and offer your blessings. And offer a path of compassion, a path of understanding, and a path of kindness that we can each walk on to change the world that we're living in. We've come to a time where we know there has to be systematic changes within communities for unity, for peace, and to truly live the life that you meant us, the life that you gave us. Upon the land on which we stand, on which we take, we ask that we look upon that with grace, with beauty, and with respect. And I also ask during this convening that when we find ourselves in uncomfortable situations or we find uncomfortable thoughts, that we relish that and we cherish it. It's within those moments of uncomfortableness that we'll truly be able to stretch our own boundaries and make the changes that we wish to see within our nations, within our communities, and within ourselves. Aho, miigwech.
So I'm hurting a lot right now, so we're going to try. If not, I'm going to sit down. To thank you all for gathering. So if people want to come in any way. So for the elders, can you please come up first? And Nikki, and no, not Nikki, Maya has the water. I apologize, I'm tired. So if everyone can close their eyes, please. A lot of us have been asked, as we got on the planes, trains, and cars, a lot of us have been told, I know this is really hard for your community today. A lot of us got looked at, just wondering, what in the planet can I ask you? And got asked questions that we really did not want to ask. A lot of people cried so many tears. They have cried over and over and over again because it doesn't end. Some of us even wondered, why are we here when we really need to be at home with our people, at home with our families, at home doing the work out where it needs to be done. So please hold what it means to be here when a lot of us actually want to be home. What it means to be here and use this time righteously, what it means to be here and use this time strategically, and honor what it means for us to be here in all of our whole selves as we move forward. So I would like to first say an honor to my ancestrals, which are Seminole and Black people, who were the first divestment people. They ran away from being currency in the first divestment movement, i.e. run away from slavery. And I would like to pour a libation for my Uncle Gerald. And I can't do it, so you have to do it. And so I would like to offer for you all, and anyone that would like to pour libations. And we're gonna pour, you say the names, we're gonna sing a song while you say the names out loud softly.
Larry Mason, Kettle Mason, Dwayne Mason, Ashe.
Anyone that wants to? So we're gonna pour silently and the people around say Ashe. So here's the song, and we invite everyone to sing it. I learned from Tafar Walla Muhammad, and this is on behalf of folks in Dallas, because Dallas, folk in Dallas taught it to us, how to folks organize and train. And if you know what's happening in Dallas right now, you'll understand what this song, I have to talk loud. You'll understand why this song is very important. All right, so here's how it goes. We are the children of the people who did not die. We are the children of the people who could fly. We are the children of the ones who persevered. We are fearless. We are strong. And we're ready to carry on. And just holding that a lot of those of us are children of people who did pass away, right? So here's how it goes. So Tafar always says, it doesn't matter if you actually are on key or not. If you sing together, we're moving. So here we go. We are the children of the people who did not die. We are the children of the people who did not die. We are the children of the people who could fly. We are the children of the people who could fly. We are the children of the ones who persevered. We are fearless, we are strong, and we're ready to carry on. So we're going to sing it one more time, and those who want to pour, please do. We are the children of the people who did not die. We are the children of the people who did not die. We are the children of the people who could fly. We are the children of the ones who persevered. We are the children of the ones who persevered. We are fearless, we are strong, and we're ready to carry on. We are fearless, we are strong, and we're ready to carry on. Ashe.
So I want to pour this for my father, C.J. Sharp, who this was his home, Buffalo, and I'm carrying on for him.
So we're going to do it in here, because if everybody goes with the mic, We can't do it. Everyone will kill me. And we don't want to die today. Oh, that's right. So we'll take a moment. So we're doing that. This panel today is around sovereignty and self and community determination. And we wanted to start in the way that our cultures open space and what it means to be self-determined and sovereign. And Anon mentioned it earlier, right? If our folks are all gone, then it doesn't matter what kind of economy we build, we won't be there. Right? So if we don't actually talk about race, and I want to be clear, race and class are hyper-connected because it's not just a people of color-led movement, it's actually a poor people of color-led movement too, right? Because sometimes we get excited with people who actually aren't actually on our margins all the times. And so we have to be here to live it. So we're going to start by talking, we're going to just do a couple questions and then move it to the audience. And so we're going to start with who were our ancestors, what is our movement family, how did we get into this space?
Hello, my name is Chrystel Cornelius, and I am the Executive Director of First Nations Oweesta Corporation. We are a certified Native Community Development Financial Institution and the only intermediary lender in the nation. So what does that mean? CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, are special programs designed under Treasury to help capital access and education to underserved communities throughout the United States. Basically, we're lending to the unbankable. My organization, as the only intermediary lender, what that means, there are 70 Native CDFIs within Indian country. We have 566 federally recognized tribes within the United States. So essentially, within 70 of these communities, these lending institutions have formed. Indian country is really associated as one of the highest risk investments within the United States. There is no divestment within Indian country because we haven't got investments in the first place to have anybody divest from. So my organization is the only organization that actually capitalizes these Native CDFIs so that we can propel private sector economy, begin entrepreneurship endeavors, home ownership endeavors, as well as consumer type lending. So we're building private sector economy throughout the nation. How I got here, and I mentioned briefly, I'm a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa in North Dakota and the Oneida Nation in Wisconsin. My history in and of itself has been very permeated from my earliest memories on a political basis. My grandmother was the first tribal chairwoman in the history of our tribe. She was also a founder of the American Indian Movement, AIM, otherwise known as AIM, way back in the day with Clyde Belcourt, Vernon Belcourt, Leonard Peltier, if any of you are familiar with a political prisoner within Indian country, is my fourth cousin. My grandmother used to babysit. So when I was growing up, our culture essentially within Grandma's house, who was the matriarch of the family, is be seen and not heard, but throughout all of those years, she fought for our treaty rights. She has sat at the table with John F. Kennedy and promoted treaty rights to be enacted by the federal government as we're seeing those stripped away. So really why I am and how I end up to be in this place, I really feel was somewhat formulated by the strength of my grandmother. I've had the opportunity and the privilege, which I'm extremely humbled and always honored to work within a vast amount of tribal nations throughout the United States. We are the invisible minority in this nation. We are America's dirty little secret. We do not have a platform or huge political platforms, barely even noteworthy of mention within recent political platforms other than Bernie Sanders. So why I'm here is to make sure that my ancestors, whose bones are buried on this land from time immemorial, that we are not forgotten, that we are able to attain our sovereignty and have the access to all of the wonderful privileges of being an American, when as a first American, we have been discarded.
Is this one on? This one's on? Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Malachi, Garza, and I just want to say thank you for the opening, the people who spoke before, and Elandria leading us in the song, people who poured libation. Got it. I see you, see me. So to get to her question, I think I got here because Elandria was like, yo, Malachi, come do this thing. And then I was like, I don't know. And then I looked at the work of this space and who the people are who come. And I said I would be honored and humbled to be in this space, so thank you for sharing that with us. My background is working class Mexican and Irish family, mostly in California. We're called leprechanos. There's a lot of us. Got a little German in there too. My family is deeply rooted in rural and urban life. And I was raised as an evangelical little PK, if you will, so I'm used to the stage. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna try to change your soul situation, but we're gonna get close. So I learned how to organize in the church. Thank you, Jesus. And I would say the LGBT community, particularly trans liberation and trans space, taught me the limits of respectability politics and the dynamics of what is truly possible. And I just want to say, what's up, Pancho, Felipe, Emery, Steph? I see you out there too. And so there's just lots of movement family even here, the North Carolina heads. I mean, it's just a blessing to be here. And so I will say that I think the work that I've been doing for the last decade has been around prison reform, juvenile justice reform, and police reform. We know that's a huge part of the economy. For a lot of folks, it's like, welcome to the party. And in 30 seconds, I will say that Who's My People is folks that starve the beast, build people's power, work to eliminate anti-black racism. You are my people. Thank you. Thank you.
So who are my folks? My folks are Seminole and Black folks. Folks that fought together in the Seminole Indian Wars and said F you to folks that tried to take their land, folks that kept their land, unlike a lot of folks, and folks that started black towns in Florida, which meant they didn't actually need white people for much of anything, and people that wouldn't let people in the house. Folks that did organizing, grandparents who started some of the first NAACP chapters in Florida. My parents and families were in unions and cooperatives. So my grandfather, who couldn't read or write, would be like, what do you do? Huh? And you finally get to union. He'd be like, oh, that's great, good, there we go. And they would sing a union song. My family is, I'm a song member, Southerners and New Ground, the Southern Grassroots Economies Project, going to meetings with my parents as a kid around, trying to deal with around South Africa and anti-apartheid struggles, and then taking my nephews and nieces and all my little godchildren to movement stuff too. I'm a Highlander baby where I work now, and my church family was righteous and really supported me. And there's more, so here's what I'll say. I got started around doing police brutality work. As when I got older. Zero tolerance policy started my freshman year of high school and expelled a ton of my friends out of high school. And we started doing organizing work, and a lot of friends got locked up. A crew of us got sexually assaulted time and time again, and we still came back. That in some ways led me to Highlander to do work around seeds of fire, education, criminalization, migration, and environmental destruction. And then in 2007, because of the 2007 Social Forum in Atlanta. I met up with the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network and met Emily Kawano, who's in this room, who taught me a whole bunch. And then I met Yvonne and Nancy from Quebec and others that led me and Highlander back to doing work around the solidarity economy. And then I want to shout out Marnie and Ed with the Fund for Democratic Communities, who were like, how do we actually take this work around cooperatives and solidarity economy work to the South in a real severe way? And they brought folks together in organizations to start the Southern Grassroots Economics Project. Really led by people most directly impacted, because a lot of times the networks are actually not led by people directly impacted. And it's due to Highlander, Fresnita, the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, and more. And so I'm blessed to work with those folks nationally, regionally, and locally, and then way more that I can talk about later. But I just wanted to shout those folks out, because sometimes the ancestors are not just the folks that are passed away, they're the folks that are currently in the room. So here we go. Here's the second question. What does sovereignty and community determination mean to you, and how should that be practically enacted in your work and in your life?
She gave us like really little questions, really easy. And we're gonna try to go this way and that way on answering, so we're not too boring. So I think for us to win and to really look at sovereignty and community determination, we have to look at criminalization of immigrants, criminalization of people of color, and in particular, Black people. As an economic sector, we know that 60%, on average, 60% of every municipal budget is spent on administering the prison industrial complex, right? What actually fuels that is 2.2 million people that are incarcerated, 4.8 million people on probation or parole, and 1 million, or approximately 60% of those people, are Black. The US has the largest immigrant detention system in the world, with ICE operating right now 205 detention centers. Many of those are private prisons and detention centers. So it's a for-profit machine. And for us to win, we need to focus front and center on repurposing the function and form of the military-industrial complex in the United States, which has the cancers of racism and capital fueling its DNA. Our work at the Burns Institute is about an insider-outsider game, engaging system players, decision makers with community members to identify target populations of people that are experiencing racial and ethnic disparities, to de-incarcerate, and then forcing that jurisdiction to have the money that would have been spent incarcerating those people to be turned over to the hands of community-based assets and organizations to administer care and realize justice. Thank you, little clappings. So, for sovereignty and community determination, to me, means freedom. Living within the legacies of a nation that limits or eliminates the freedom of those who built it and continue to build the wealth on which this country survives. Immigration policies in the United States are inextricably connected to changes in the economy, to profit, to consolidate control over market. So to me, sovereignty and community determination demand global movements ready to combat the multiple forms of state-sanctioned violence that our communities face, just as much as it's ready to implement healthy, multiracial democracy and a new economy. So we don't deal with the fundamental principles of capital and anti-Blackness in the US, we will not realize a new economy. We will not realize self-determination or freedom.
So sovereignty and community determination mean to me a lot of things, right? So one, it helps to actually have been grown up in it, right? Which means, what does it mean to control your own space? To have your own finance, to have your own governance, to have your own, what you need to survive, right? And so I think there's a whole lot of folks that are trying to figure out right now, how do you even do that, right? So like, okay, we semi-win, but oops, we've missed some key parts. There's some things we don't know how to do, right? And so to me, it also means, so here, I'm just gonna put this down. So here's my pet peeve over the last year. So I've been helping with this project called Beautiful Solutions, which is about gathering stories written by the people themselves about their own projects, right, and their own solutions. And it is amazing how much people want to write about other people with no relationship to them, and then go, oh, and then folk are like, how come they always get my story wrong? Or organizations that are doing work with mostly poor black people, indigenous folks, whatever, are actually not run by them at all, right? And so we have a model, even in this economy, so whether you want to call it solidarity economy, new economy, whatever, different universe, where the people most directly that know what they need aren't actually leading what they need, right? And so it doesn't mean we don't actually work together, but it does mean that people are making a whole hell of a lot of money on my folk and on other people. So we got a system built for a certain class of people to make a whole lot of money in the new economy movement. And that money is not going back in large droves into communities. So what self-determined means to me is something that SGP started, right, which is the Southern Reparations Loan Fund, in partnership with the working world and other folks to go, how do we actually do technical assistance, right? So like Nikki Moraine Boehner is going out helping communities across the South do that work themselves, right? How do we actually like make that possible? That to me is what self-determined looks like. It's actually like the practical stuff on the ground, not just the theoretical saying, I want to get free. That's nice. But what does free look like, really? Because I don't think we spend enough time going, what does free look like? Right? It's not actually saying we want a new economy. It's saying, well, damn it, we had an economy. For a lot of us, that was beautiful in some places. But guess what? You destroyed it. So I was just in South Africa with folks from Bhopal who were like, you know what? Is anyone going to talk about the toxic dumping happening in Bhopal? It wasn't perfect. We had a crazy caste system. But I tell you, it was better before they dumped and aren't going to clean it up. And there are traditional economies that people come from and traditional ways of being that are not lifted up, right? So whenever I hear the words just transition, honestly, I'm like, what are we transitioning from and to? Because this isn't the first transition over time. There have been lots of transitions. And so sometimes you got to transition back, not forward. Or you got to go, what is a tradition that I innovate towards, right? So how do I use my historical practices and realities in terms of my innovation? And so to me, what it really means is how do we actually like band together and also say, in the end of the day, I work with folk that are like an I, so we're going to use an I statement. I am crying. I can barely move. You see, I have a great walker. It's wonderful. I hurt all day long. So if I'm going to sit on a stage or work with people when I hurt all day long, it better be some real shit. It better not be no wake fact shit, just to be real. And it better be something that my twin brother, who will never make to a conference, because he's a forklift driver working 3 jobs with a drug charge that never should have gotten, how can he be benefited and how can he be in the forefront, right? So that's what I care about. It's how the folks that are on the border who actually the border got put on them, how did they actually be in leadership? That to me is what community self-determined looks like.
I should have gone second. How do you follow that? So, sovereignty and community determination. I have a different viewpoint in this as a Native woman. When Elandria initially posed this question, and I've thought about this question quite a bit, actually, or just the status of what is sovereignty, what is community determination, and actually, I took a pause in a moment, and it made me very sad in the realization that we're talking about attaining this. We're talking about what does it mean, what metrics do we need to get to this point. In actuality, if we look at sovereignty, our generation has never known sovereignty. Our grandmother's generation has never known sovereignty, our grandfathers. So if we go back maybe 5 generations, wherever we all came from, that was sovereignty. And looking at sovereignty in this day and age, sovereignty to me is having the ability to make mistakes and fix them yourselves. Sovereignty to me and within our communities is being able to cut ties from oppression that tells you how to do things, what these grant guidelines are, what the benchmarks are. We know the answer to all of your problems, so we'll tell you how to fix it. That is not sovereignty. Sovereignty, we know collectively within our own communities, whether that be tribal, whether that be urban, doesn't matter what race, color, creed, we know our own solutions, we know our own problems. We need to collectively get to be, have the opportunity and the paths in order to get us there. Community self-determination. I think that the majority of the United States has a lot to learn from tribal politics and tribal communal living. Even though there's, as I indicated, 566 federally recognized tribes within the United States. A majority of those tribes are located in extremely rural areas. My word for reservation is Ushkunigan. That translates into leftovers. You gave us what wasn't viable. It wasn't viable on an agricultural level. It wasn't viable on a monetary level. It was depleted of resources, whatever be the case. Community determination, sovereignty. For over 500 years, my people have taken care of themselves, and I'm tired of Indian country on one aspect to be lifted on a platform of poverty, even black poverty, Asian poverty, white poverty. If we start labeling ourselves, even though it's a very real circumstance and we live it, we're affected by it, our family members are affected by it, I think that it puts us in a deficit mindset, and I think that's the last thing that we need. So it's something that we live with, but we have strengths, we have talents, we have communal ties that have kept us going, and again, I can equate this to Indian communities as well as other communities in showing each other that respect and lifting each other up. Community determination is realizing people's capacity. Everybody in this world has a different capacity. Some people might have been given the gift to where they can be a brain surgeon. Some people might have a gift to where they can be a wonderful chef. And some people may not know what the heck their purpose is in this world, and they get any job that they can to feed their families and pay their bills, if they're even able to get that job. By realizing that capacity, first and foremost, and I think taking out ego from this whole equation and realizing each and every one of us in this room has a gift to give, and no gift is greater or less than the other. We all make this wheel turn, and without each and every type of industry, type of individual, we cannot realize the true potential of what the Creator, I believe, is meant to give us for humankind and the beauty and grace that we're supposed to walk in. This system that we have been born into, it's not working. And I think it is so incredibly phenomenal looking around this room, looking at the diversity in the room, looking at even the age diversity, how much youth we have. This is what it's going to take to collectively change ourselves and for us to come together with these movements and really come to fruition what we're looking for in this new economy. Great change within the globe in and of itself throughout generations has never been implemented by people in power. It's people like us, you and me and our brothers and our sisters that are coming together to make this change within an economy, because we do not have social justice, we do not have political justice, we do not have racial justice. That's all got to change, and we all know that. We're all working towards that in one way or another, and I think collectively with what we're looking at, what sovereignty can be and what community determination is, we're all walking that path every day. We're walking, living, and breathing it. So with that, I actually feel very humbled by the individuals that we have in this room, and coming together even within our differences. I think we can come out stronger and we can really make that change that we're looking to see, because if not, what are we leaving to our grandchildren? What's happening 7 generations from today? Are we even going to be here to even think about that type of measure?
So this is the last question, and then we're going to do a question and answer moment. So people should have cards. So I'm just saying this now. So if you have a question, please write it down. We're going to do this last question. We're going to give folks a moment to say any last comments, and you're going to pass your cards out to whoever's sitting on the side, and then people are going to say your questions. So here is the last one, if I can find the thing. Okay, so thinking about what it means to decolonize the economy in our lives, what else do we need to do? And so the only other thing I think I'll say is around what it means to decolonize knowledges. Oh, that was dark. And have a global understanding. So today I got blessed to be able to facilitate an international lab of a lot of the folks that were in the room that got yelled at when you said Senegal and Australia and Germany and Spain. And really learning, like, what does it take to build a global movement? And what does it take to learn from people who've done things that we in the US have not done? That to me is massive about what it takes. It takes about thinking. I was in South Africa and we were talking about what does Pan-African trade look like? Both trade inside of our communities and outside. And then what it means to actually create a network of networks. And so when I think about decolonizing the economy, it's like, what does it mean that you both have distributed but connected, right? So if you're going to take down a multinational, then what do you have to create in return? Because things can't just be little or minute, right? So the whole conversation today was about scaled up, but scaled up in a different kind of way, right? So all of us are talking about what does it mean to scale up. And some of us come from smaller places, like me. I do not live in a giant major city. And no one actually wants to get too scaled up because we're already tired of the traffic and the random people, right? Or like in Pensacola, Florida, where you're like, great, don't get any bigger than 50,000. That is enough. Right? We need the beach undeveloped, right? Like, how do we actually scale up, but without destroying Mother Earth and without destroying things? And I think that is one of the things in terms of decolonizing that we still have to figure out how to do. Like, we don't know how to do that yet. I don't think anybody knows how to do that yet. But I think we're in a really good process of learning. And it's something that, was said earlier, is what does it mean to put race at the center? And to actually hold, what does it mean to build from that space? And to build from what it means to decolonize, even how we move through. Because all of us have a whole bunch of unlearning to do, even as we move, right? We do not sometimes move from culture at the center and culture at the root. Sometimes people want to add culture in, like adding a song is adding in culture. But culture is everything around us. So are we moving from our cultural rootedness? Are we doing cultural organizing in our creation of things, right? Are we actually grounded in the cultures in which we come from so people see the structures and go, yes, that is a structure that I can live with and not a structure that is somebody else's on me, right? So that to me is what decolonizing looks like and means. Who's next?
I thought this is a really interesting question, and this is a financial system that we have been living in for generations upon generations. I'm in the financial realm within my work in investing, issuing loans. We have large investment portfolio as well. I'm really seeing a change when we're talking about this decolonization of the economy, and a lot of high worth individuals are really becoming more cognizant in where their money's going and how it's feeding that system. One thing I think that is paramount insofar as how we actually enact this is education. And education, just insofar as the people in the room tonight, we somewhat know what we're talking about, right? We like to think that we do. Insofar as how do we break these systems? But I think that when this is spread out on a larger level and we have a more mass population that's able to really look at the discrepancies and the segregation that our current economic system is playing within so many myriads of social aspects within the communities that we're living in, they're all tied together. So that, number one, I think our word needs to continue to be spread, continue to be reverberated throughout the United States, and have those moments of uncomfortableness to where individuals that can make a difference think, oh my goodness, okay, we need to change this. Number two, of everything that we're looking to try to do in whatever measure or myriad of our operations, maybe we're working with environmental work, financial work, segregation work, racial work, and looking at those systems and looking at bases of poverty, no matter what we're trying to do, it doesn't matter what type of measure that we're working in, we can't do anything without resources, plain and simple, period. Poor people can't get out of poverty without resources. Those resources could be capital, it could be natural resources, human resources, whatever be the case. But when we get down to the plain dollar and cents of the fact, we need to look at investment differently and we need to look at risk differently. We need a majority of America to start looking at this in a way to where we really can start investing in our community and ascertain risk other than what the system tells us to ascertain, because that's why we're seeing communities divested in or communities outside of Indian country, because I already explained that aspect. I'll tell a real quick story. Department of Treasury, the head of Department of Treasury, I had the privilege of meeting with, and when we're going through extreme racial discord within the United States. We're looking at Ferguson. We're looking at all of these other states. She had some of her lab rats go in and look and say, hey, let's look at how investments have come into these communities and how this is playing into the racial inequity within the United States. She was surprised. I wasn't. What they found was, you know what, within these imaginary red lines are supposed to be, you know, done for after the 60s with the conventional banking institutions, there was no investments within these communities whatsoever. Or there was no community investment to where we had outside shareholders within these communities, and the community itself had no say with what was happening, whether that be in a materialistic form, communal form, whatever be the case. So I think to decolonize the economy and what really needs to be done there is we need to ascertain what it really looks like to invest in our communities. We need community involvement, and we need the big players really to ascertain risk in a manner to where it is manageable and it is doable. Quick example, First Nations Oweesta, my corporation. We have revolved over $20 million in Indian country through lending efforts. I have 0 defaults and 0 late payments. I have a portfolio that a bank would kill for. I'm the only one giving this money. We need other people taking those risks as well within our low income and our underserved and our marginalized communities, because you know what, when you give the power to the people, they make it work.
Okay, I appreciate who's ever doing that mood lighting thing. I feel like we went on a couple dates together already. It's kind of nice. So the question around decolonizing the economy in our lives, one of the things I think is really a crazy travesty is this weird mythology in the US that only some people are organizers. Only if you're paid and full-time and at that organization. Oh yeah, they're the organizers, right? That is the biggest crock of whatever you would say, and there's children around. That's the biggest load of crap that the US left has bought wholeheartedly, right? And one of the things that we need to do is organize, organize, organize. If you're a nurse, if you're a truck driver, if you drive a tractor, if you plant in the ground, if you're a teacher, if you're a daycare provider, you are an organizer. And, all right. One of the things that's difficult about being politicized also in the left in the US is it's hard to learn how to organize unless you participate, right? Because there's like this weird cliquey false reality thing. Then there's also like, where do I go to sign into www.teachmehowtoorganize.com? One of the most beautiful things about conferences, I think, is the relationships between people and the power that's generated in our relationships. So I wanted to see if you are somebody who knows how to organize. You're like, I know that, community organizing, I can do that. You might be able to talk to somebody here who wants to think about how can they think of themselves as an organizer and also what they're already doing. Can you raise your hand if you're willing to be a resource to talk to people about how to organize? Yes, that's a beautiful thing. So look to your left, look to your right, to in front, behind. It is your responsibility to learn if you don't know. And these people have committed to helping you out. Unless they say, you know what, not today, baby, not right now. Because sometimes that's how it is. Find somebody else, there was lots of hands. So if we're going to be organizing under a system of racialized capital, then we have to challenge and provide alternatives to the principles in which it operates. We must shape our work directly to confront that purpose. The purpose of the economy is to generate profit, that economic growth and the accumulation of wealth should be unlimited, the ownership of private property, and that it has no social obligation, just to name a few. Right? If our work can be uncompromising in this, such as our work where we bring together, we do policy and practice change to de-incarcerate people and repurpose significant amounts of money from police departments and probation departments and into communities' hands. We are uncompromising in the strategy. It works amazingly well, and the reason they have to do it is because there are movements in place in the places we work strong enough to demand it and hold local departments accountable to working with us and following through in that work. So without doing political education and base building and community organizing, we would have no success. Our big ideas and policy and do it like us because we're so smart, we would be talking to their 5 friends in a little room as organizers. And so I think about we must organize to be as bold as the systems that we are up against. Right? And in Tucson, we've seen our work result in an average daily population in their hall used to be 178 kids. In 2 years, that was down to 42. In New York City, we reappropriated close to $1 million just for in the Bronx to go to community-based services and out of the criminal justice system. Right? These wins are possible and continue to be possible because we've also invested in a network of community groups. We are studying, educating, base building, and organizing amongst ourselves about what does it mean to collaborate, to repurpose, and to have self-determined outcome. Right? How do you even know what department to walk into to demand what? All right, so I want to challenge this room also around study, around pushing the limits of our work. Right? We have to be as audacious. We were in Jefferson Parish, and there was a judge who wanted to mess with us. And so we said, well, the data in your county is showing that kids who come in with guns don't commit any worse crimes than kids who aren't carrying guns. So let's eliminate upcharging for weapons in your courtroom. And he was like, child, you are crazy. You're West Coast crazy. Which is true. So we used the data and we organized very wealthy, academic, physically conservative whoop-de-whoops to apply pressure on that judge to do an experiment around eliminating upcharges for weapons charges, which is a pretty serious, gotta wrap your mind around it reality, right? In a place where it's as easy to find guns on your way to school as it is a juice box, right? And why are these kids carrying guns, right? We didn't go as far as protection from you, but. So I want to say that we have to be bold and uncompromising and not leave anyone behind, and that nothing replaces the work of base building and political education. The last thing I'll say is that something Alicia says a lot, which is we have been taught to love capitalism more than ourselves. And yet, love for our people means being willing to struggle around the contradictions that we embody that keep us from getting free in our mind and our body and our spirits. This movement has begun to grow, I would say, the police brutality movements and this kind of stuff, but there is a dynamics of it that eat each other alive, right? That want to Facebook and Twitter thug out against each other, right? Like, you're not as hard as us, woo-de-woo. It's fucking ridiculous. So I'll end with saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And we have seen in this country what a culture shift makes possible. There have been 28 new laws around policing that have been progressive, that have been passed in the last 8 months. Because the culture in this country has changed around what is acceptable right now. Right? And so if culture eats strategy per breakfast, there is another challenge I will put to the white organizers and activists and progressives in this room, which is around building white organizing projects in this time. In a time of Trump, where we get to choose basically between white feminism and white supremacy. We need white mass-based organizing projects beyond signs and yards. We need long-term political strategy rooted in relationship building that takes risks and shut down sites of oppression. I want to see white people doing sit-ins at police stations to release data. I want to see white people eliminate racism and structural racism in this country. So this is a call for all hands on deck for mass participation. The work around anti-blackness in the US is actually a call in to a fractured movement, a call in to find a place of synergy and strategy to take risks from. Like if you're a union member, be like Local 2865 auto workers that just called that AFL eliminate their relationship with the International Union of Police Associations. I know. If you're in the health field, peep what White Coats for Black Lives is doing. If you're a grower or a co-op, think about reentry jobs and jobs specifically for people with felonies. Bringing food to organizers at meetings. Organize and provide childcare for those that are in meetings, that are closed, that are maybe not for you. Provide food and childcare and transportation to it. Don't complain and want in. Flank and join. So I would just say that we're going to build a loving, all-inclusive, unapologetic movement. And I ask you to consider with us this weekend, how can you increase your base building, your political education, your work to eliminate anti-black racism, and to disrupt the principles of capital.
So we started a little late, just a little. So I actually don't think we have time for questions and answers. I'm so sorry. But you can stay if you want.
What if we do like a self-determined stay if you want and...
Except we have to ask the people who run the building what it means. Amen for people who work. Workers, woohoo. And so I want to say that we might can take a couple. So if you have any, like raise your hand so people can get them and so we can try. Do a couple. They have runners. There's runners around. And so the thing I want to add to what Mal said that I think is important is that not just outside folks, it's also our families, right? Everybody has to talk to their family right now. The ones that agree with you, the ones that disagree with you, we got to do it. So here we go. Here is a question. It's not little. Just here we go. This might be the question of the day. How can we focus on self-determination of small local communities while also confronting the power of the American empire? We're going to say the U.S. empire because the Americans are large. So let's do it one more time. How can we focus on self-determination of local small communities while also confronting the power of the U.S. empire? Anyone have a thought?
Let me see the question again. So I think self-determination can be separated from an American empire, right? We see that going on as we live and speak and breathe every day. I think that some of the federal resources that are available to help combat some of the issues that we're all working and dealing with, I would say take every dime of federal money that you can to help build up the self-determined efforts within those communities, within your own communities. Small rural communities, small communities in and of itself, there's a beauty in that, and there's a scale to growing. a rural community is never going to be a metro area. It's never perceived to be, never should be. I think that the question really is a matter of separation. If you're confronting the power of the American empire, you can do that by success. You can do that by solidarity. You can do that by voices, collective voices. I think power and people are the thing that's going to change what we're looking at, whether that be local, regional, national. You can start making those movements yourself on a small local level and be able to make major changes within the power of the political empire. One thing that I would say as well, that it's very important that you keep yourself abreast of what's going on if you really are interested within legislation, what's going on with Congress, what's going on with Senate, because those voices and calling your congressional delegates and calling them over and over and over again, maybe with different voices, maybe with different accents, whatever be the case. If you can't get your friends on board, I do it all the time. That makes a difference. So get engaged in your political system as well.
So we're going to answer, so do you have an answer for this? So here we go. This is the only other thing I would say, is I think it goes back to the organizing right and actually doing work around militarization, right? So if you don't, the only way to confront the U.S. empire is actually to do work to strike down the beast, right? It's like actually doing work against Monsanto. It's organizing against large multinational corporations, and at the same time saying there are people who do work around militarization in the US and globally, and working with them at the same time, right? It's not saying we can build this new thing and not destroy this old thing. Like, that's the biggest thing. People who are building the new thing have to also work to destroy the other thing at the same time, and that's what doesn't happen. Like, that is the biggest piece, at least to me. So we're gonna do one last question. I am so sorry, there are so many. But that was the big one. So, and I'm not going to say this whole thing because it's actually a commentary and a question. So it's about how can we better acknowledge that our survival is a form of victory. How do we talk about survival as a form of victory?
Well, I would say my favorite thing is always cultural work, you know? So singing about the resilience, painting pictures of survival, you know, putting up those murals, telling those stories. I think that there's a reverberation of images and of survival that is a huge piece of the game. That when something, you know, when you hear a really good song and like your feet kind of like move and your hips start to move and you're like, oh, something's happening. We need that feeling a lot more in our damn work. In our movement. That would do it for me.
So I will say to my friends in Buffalo, so some of us Southerners went to the rally today, and we were a little in shock. We were like, what happened to the song and the chant? We do a lot of singing where I come from, and a lot of chanting, which is what we're going to close out with. And we were like, oh, there's a lot of speaking, a whole lot of speaking. Speeches are good. But I think what Mal's saying is really huge. There's a new crew called Rev Sekou and the Holy Ghost. If you do not know Sekou, he's a lovely human being I've known since I was 5. And J. Marie, who should have been on the album cover, but whatever. But what I will say is it's taken chants and stuff that comes from the church originally, but put to like movement music and like the blues. It's hot to death. I would listen to it. It is one of those like, I'm awake now and ready to go. Like, here's an example. We ready, we coming. Like, just that is like, oh yes, we ready. So that to me is like an example, right? I don't know.
How can we acknowledge our survival? Survival is, survival is a form of victory. That is true. You know, I had an elder tell me not that long ago, and it was so profound and so simple, and this can come no matter what race you are, is the greatest gift that our ancestors could give us is surviving, right? And they had to survive through terrible atrocities. I think I'd like to end this with one thing in thinking about the matter of survival. One of our traditional teachings, I think, is so incredibly beautiful. and we're taught that a person actually has two deaths. The first death is when they physically leave this world and they go on to their journey back to the Creator, but the second and the most sad death is when they're forgotten. So I think when you are no longer able to retrace the histories of your ancestors, remember those names, even if they're not related to you. Survival in itself is a victory there. Let's not let the people that were standing on those shoulders die that second death. Always remember what they went through, and let's continue fighting, because what we're dealing with today in our current economy and within the current structure in which we're living is nothing to what our ancestors had to contend with 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago. We've really got it easy. And I think that's important to remember.
All right, you ready? So, if everyone can please stand as you are willing and able, or stand in mind, body, and spirit. These are the ways that if you do differing ability work. So we're going to close with a chant and then walk on out.
All right.
Or drive on out, or scooter on out, or whatever.
All right. So this is a little bit of a call and response. So we're going to yell at a phrase, and then your job, if you're actually feeling it, is to shout out, "We're ready." All right? If you're not sure, don't feel pressured. It's all right. Somebody's going to organize you. Somebody that raised their hand. Okay. Are we ready to build?
We're ready.
Are we ready to fight? Are we ready to win? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
You don't have to stop clapping. You can keep going. Thank you so much to that incredible panel, and thank you to everybody for sticking through the night.